The morning sun casts long shadows through the windows of Crimson Bean Coffee House in downtown Boston. Griffin Blackwood, dressed in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit that probably costs more than most people's monthly rent, stands in line while typing rapidly on his phone. At 32, he's already made his mark as the CEO of Blackwood Innovations, one of the fastest-growing tech companies in Massachusetts. His steel-gray eyes barely lift from the screen as he moves forward in line. "The usual, Mr. Blackwood," calls out Penny, the barista who's served him his morning coffee for the past 3 years. "Double shot Americano, extra hot?" Griffin nods, finally looking up with a slight smile. "Thanks, Penny. And throw in one of those chocolate croissants today. Board meeting at 9. He slides his black Amex across the counter, his attention already back on his phone where his assistant, Kingston, is sending him updates about the morning's meetings. The bell above the door chimes. Griffin doesn't look up, but he hears a woman's voice ordering behind him. Something about that voice makes his fingers freeze mid-text. It's been 10 years, but he'd know that voice anywhere. Sage Winters. His heart stops, then kicks into overdrive. "Mom, can we get hot chocolate? Please?" A child's voice. Then another, identical. "Yeah, with extra whipped cream?" And a third, completing the chorus. "And chocolate sprinkles?" Griffin turns slowly, his phone forgotten in his hand. There she is, Sage, more beautiful than ever in a simple navy blazer and jeans, her copper-red hair shorter now but still falling in those familiar waves. But it's not just Sage that makes his world tilt on its axis. It's the 3 boys crowded around her, all identical down to their dimpled grins and tousled dark hair. Hair the exact same shade as his own. Eyes the same striking gray. Sage looks up, perhaps sensing his stare. The color drains from her face. "Griffin," she whispers, her hand instinctively reaching out to pull her sons closer. The boys look up at him curiously, and Griffin feels like he's looking in a mirror of his own childhood. The same sharp jawline that's been a Blackwood family trait for generations. The same slight cleft in their chins. "These are my sons," Sage says quietly, her voice trembling slightly. "Atlas, Orion, and Phoenix." Griffin's coffee cup slips from his hand, hitting the floor with a splash that nobody seems to notice. 9 years old, his mind calculates automatically. 9 years since Sage disappeared from his life, leaving nothing but a note and a returned engagement ring. 9 years, 3 identical boys, and a face he sees in the mirror every morning staring back at him in triplicate. "I think," Griffin says, his voice sounding distant to his own ears, "we need to talk." Penny is already mopping up the spilled coffee, her eyes wide as she glances between Griffin and the boys, clearly noting the resemblance. The triplets are still focused on the pastry display, oblivious to the tension crackling between the adults. "Boys," Sage says, her voice remarkably steady, "why don't you pick out which treats you want?" She turns to Griffin, her green eyes full of a mixture of fear and defiance. "There's a park across the street. We can talk there." Griffin nods slowly, his mind racing through 1,000 questions, 1,000 accusations, 1,000 moments of lost time. As he watches the boys argue good-naturedly about which pastries look best, he sees his own mannerisms reflected in their movements, his own smile on their faces. How had he not known? How had she kept this from him? And what happens now that he knows the truth? The small park across from Crimson Bean buzzes with early morning joggers and dog walkers. Griffin sits beside Sage on a wooden bench, watching the triplets chase each other around the playground equipment 30 feet away. Their laughter carries across the crisp morning air, a sound that makes his chest ache with all the years he's missed. "Why didn't you tell me?" Griffin's voice is low, controlled, but there's an undercurrent of pain that makes Sage flinch. 10 years, Sage. 10 years of their lives. My sons. Sage wraps her hands tighter around her coffee cup. "I found out 2 weeks after I left. After your father threatened to destroy my career if I didn't break off the engagement." She looks at him sharply. "Did you ever wonder why I really left? Did you even question the story your father fed you about me taking that job in Europe?" Griffin's jaw tightens. "Sterling Blackwood died 3 years ago, Sage. You could have told me then. Could I?" Sage's laugh is bitter. "You were all over the news by then. Boston's youngest tech billionaire. The Prince of Silicon Valley East. Your father might have been gone, but his threats weren't. He had documents, Griffin. Papers that would have proved I stole proprietary designs during my internship at Blackwood Technologies. It wasn't true, but he had everything fabricated perfectly. Atlas, don't push your brother." Sage calls out, momentarily distracted as Atlas and Phoenix wrestle over who gets to go down the slide first. Orion plays peacemaker, suggesting they race to the swings instead. Griffin watches them, his throat tight. They're incredible, he whispers. What are they like? Sage's expression softens. Atlas is our little leader. First to try anything, stubborn as they come. Orion's the mediator, always solving everyone's problems. And Phoenix? He's the dreamer. Spends hours reading just like you used to. Just like I used to, Griffin repeats quietly. He runs a hand through his hair, the same gesture Phoenix makes as he contemplates which swing to choose. I've missed everything. First steps, first words, first day of school. They're in 4th grade at Brighton Elementary, Sage offers. All in different classes because they're too clever when they're together. Top of their grades, especially in science and math. Blackwood genes, Griffin says with a hint of pride, then sobers. I want to be part of their lives, Sage. I have that right. And what about your board of directors? Your shareholders? The media? Are you ready for everyone to know that Boston's most eligible bachelor has 3 9-year-old sons? That you had a fiancé who vanished under mysterious circumstances? Griffin turns to face her fully. I don't care about any of that. These are my children. Nothing else matters. He pauses, watching as Orion demonstrates a perfect pump on the swing while his brothers try to copy his technique. I've wasted enough time caring about what other people think. My father controlled both our lives with that mindset. I won't let his ghost keep me from my sons any longer. Sage blinks rapidly, fighting tears. They've asked about their father. I told them he was someone I loved very much, but we couldn't be together. They're smart, Griffin. They've probably already noticed how much they look like you. Mom? Atlas calls out. Phoenix bet me I couldn't go all the way around on the swing. Tell him that's impossible, right? Actually, Griffin calls back before he can stop himself. It is impossible. It's because of the physics of pendulum motion and the swing's chain length. 3 identical faces turn to look at him with fascination, and Griffin feels his heart swell. Want me to explain how it works? The boys abandon their swings and race over, and Griffin catches Sage's mixed expression of worry and wonder. As their sons crowd around, asking rapid-fire questions about physics and mathematics, Griffin realizes his entire world has shifted in the space of a morning. His phone buzzes, probably Kingston reminding him about the board meeting, but for the first time in his career, business will have to wait. He has more important matters to attend to. Griffin's phone buzzes for the 12th time in 15 minutes. Kingston's name flashes on the screen along with increasingly urgent messages about the board meeting. But Griffin can't tear himself away from watching Atlas demonstrate his latest science project idea, while Orion and Phoenix add their own enthusiastic improvements. So if we use magnets, Atlas explains, drawing in the dirt with a stick, we could make the marble go up the track. But what about electromagnetic interference? Griffin asks, fighting a smile as Atlas's face lights up at the technical term. Have you considered? Mr. Blackwood. Kingston's voice cuts through the morning air. Griffin's assistant hurries across the park, tablet in hand, his usually impeccable appearance slightly disheveled. Sir, the board is waiting. Mr. Thaddeus is threatening to call an emergency shareholder meeting if you don't. Kingston stops short, his eyes widening as he takes in the 3 boys who could be miniature versions of his boss. Kingston, Griffin says calmly, though his hand tightens around the stick he's holding, cancel the meeting. Cancel. Sir, this is the quarterly review. The entire board is assembled. Your father never missed a single. I'm not my father, Griffin cuts him off, his voice sharp. Then, softer, looking at his sons, I'm definitely not my father. Sage stands up from the bench. We should go. You have responsibilities, Griffin. We can't just append everything in one morning. Actually, we can. Griffin turns to Kingston. Reschedule the board meeting for tomorrow. Clear my schedule for the rest of the day. And Kingston? He waits until his assistant meets his eyes. What you've seen here stays completely confidential. Understand? Kingston nods slowly, his professional mask sliding back into place. Of course, sir. I'll take care of everything. He retreats, already typing rapidly on his tablet. Griffin, Sage starts, but he cuts her off. Have lunch with me. All of you. His eyes sweep over his sons, still absorbed in their impromptu science lesson. Please. I've missed 9 years of lunches. Give me this one. Phoenix looks up. Can we go to Cosmic Burger? They have those awesome milkshakes that change color. And arcade games. Orion adds. And the gravity simulator thing. Atlas chimes in. Griffin raises an eyebrow at Sage. Cosmic Burger? Sounds perfect. It's a school day, Sage protests weakly. Mom, please? 3 voices beg in unison, and Griffin has to hide his smile at their synchronized plea. Sage sighs, but there's a hint of amusement in her eyes. One condition, she says to Griffin. No business calls. No emails. Just this. Deal. Griffin agrees immediately, already shrugging off his suit jacket. He loosens his tie and Phoenix giggles. You look like our principal when he has to do playground duty, Phoenix says, and his brothers laugh. As they walk toward Griffin's car, a sleek Tesla that the boys immediately start asking questions about, Sage touches his arm lightly. This doesn't fix everything, she whispers. There's so much we need to figure out. Griffin watches as the boys race ahead, their excited chatter about electric engines and battery capacity carrying back to them. I know, he says quietly. But it's a start. Hey everyone. If you're enjoying this video and want more content like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. That way you won't miss out on any of the amazing stories we have coming up. Your support really helps the channel grow and keeps us bringing you more of what you love. Thank you. Cosmic Burger looks like a space station crossed with a 1950s diner, complete with chrome detailing and holographic menus that float above each table. The hostess does a double take when Griffin Blackwood walks in wearing his $1,000 suit, followed by 3 boys who could be his clones and a woman who keeps casting nervous glances at the other patrons. Welcome to Cosmic Burger, the hostess, whose name tag reads Nova, manages to say. Would you prefer a regular booth or one of our anti-gravity dining pods? Anti-gravity dining pods. The triplets shout in unison before anyone can answer. Griffin grins. You heard the astronauts. They follow Nova up a spiral staircase to a clear spherical pod suspended from the ceiling. The boys scramble in, amazed by the way their feet seem to float slightly off the floor, a clever trick of electromagnets and air pressure that Griffin immediately starts explaining until Sage gives him an amused look. Sorry, he says sheepishly. Force of habit. I get excited about technology. We know exactly where they get it from now, Sage replies, watching as Atlas tries to calculate the pod's magnetic field strength while his brothers experiment with floating their napkins. Nova hands them menus that shimmer with constellation patterns. Your server will be with you shortly. Enjoy your zero-gravity experience. This is so cool. Phoenix exclaims, his feet pushing off one wall of the pod. Way better than school. Speaking of school, Sage says, giving each boy a pointed look, you'll need to make up any work you missed today. Mom's a teacher, Orion explains to Griffin. At our school. That's why we can't get away with anything. Griffin raises his eyebrows at Sage. A teacher? I thought you were still in engineering. I switched careers after. She gestures vaguely at the boys. It made more sense with 3 kids. Better hours, summers off. She doesn't add, and it kept me under your father's radar, but Griffin hears it anyway. Their server, wearing a silver jumpsuit with Cosmic Crew emblazoned across the back, takes their orders. The boys all want the supernova burgers that change color when you add sauce, plus those color-changing milkshakes they mentioned earlier. Still a strawberry milkshake guy? Sage asks Griffin, and for a moment they're back in college at their favorite diner, sharing fries and dreams. Some things don't change, Griffin replies softly. Some things do, Sage counters, but there's no bitterness in her voice now, just a quiet acknowledgement. As they wait for their food, the boys pepper Griffin with questions. What kind of car does he drive? The Tesla plus a restored '67 Mustang. Does he like video games? He does, especially racing and strategy games. Can he really build robots? He can, and he promises to show them his workshop someday if their mom agrees. Mr. Blackwood, Atlas starts, but Griffin interrupts gently. You can call me Griffin if you want. Or. He glances at Sage, who gives a small nod. You can call me Dad. But only if you're comfortable with that. The boys exchange looks, having one of those silent conversations that only triplets seem capable of. It's Orion who speaks first, ever the diplomat. Can we think about it? We just met you. Even though you seem really cool. Of course, Griffin says, his heart both breaking and swelling at the maturity in his son's response. Take all the time you need. Their food arrives, floating dramatically to their table on magnetic serving trays. As the boys exclaim over their color-changing burgers, Griffin notices Phoenix studying him intently. What are you thinking about? He asks his quietest son. Phoenix tilts his head. Mom has a picture of you. In her drawer. She doesn't know I saw it, but sometimes when she's sad she looks at it. You're both wearing fancy clothes and she has flowers. Griffin's throat tightens. He knows exactly which picture Phoenix means. Their engagement photo from the garden party at the Blackwood estate. The last happy moment before everything fell apart. Sage is studiously focused on her salad, but Griffin can see her hands trembling slightly. The weight of their past, their present, and their uncertain future hangs in the air of the floating pod, as heavy as gravity itself. The atmosphere in the pod shifts after Phoenix's revelation about the engagement photo. Atlas, always quick to pick up on tension, tries to lighten the mood by demonstrating how the magnetic field affects his straw wrapper, but even his scientific enthusiasm can't completely dispel the heavy silence. Griffin's phone lights up with a text from Kingston. TMZ reporter called asking about your absence from board meeting. Handled it, but rumors starting. He silences the phone without responding, but Sage catches the worried look that crosses his face. Your world is going to implode when this gets out, she says quietly while the boys are distracted by a robotic server delivering dessert to a neighboring pod. The press will be relentless. Let them be, Griffin replies, but his jaw tightens. I'm not hiding my sons. Must be nice to be so certain, Sage says, an edge creeping into her voice. Some of us didn't have the luxury of choosing when our lives fell apart. Mom? Orion's sensitive nature picks up on the tension immediately. Are you okay? Sage forces a smile. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just grown-up stuff. Is it because Griffin's our dad? Atlas asks bluntly, making both adults freeze. We kind of figured it out. We did a genetics project in science class last month about inherited traits. Phoenix nods. Plus we Googled you after we saw Mom's picture. There's lots of articles about you. And we all look exactly like you, Orion adds pragmatically. It wasn't hard to solve the mystery. Griffin and Sage exchange stunned looks. All this time they'd been trying to navigate this delicate revelation, and their brilliant sons had already pieced it together. When were you going to tell us? Griffin asks Sage softly. When were you going to ask about me? She counters. 10 years, Griffin. Not once did you try to find me after I left. My father said. Griffin starts, then stops, realizing how weak it sounds. I should have looked harder. Should have questioned his story. But you have to understand, when you disappeared he showed me emails, documents, proof that you'd taken a job in Europe. That you'd chosen your career over you? Sage laughs bitterly. I chose their safety. Your father threatened to do more than just destroy my career. He had pictures of me accessing restricted areas of Blackwood Tech during my internship, doctored of course but convincing. Said he'd have me arrested for corporate espionage. I was 21, pregnant though I didn't know it yet, and terrified. The boys watched this exchange with wide eyes, absorbing every word. Atlas has his thinking face on, the same expression Griffin gets when solving a complex problem. Orion reaches for his mother's hand under the table, while Phoenix pulls out a small notebook and starts writing. What are you writing, Phoenix? Griffin asks, grateful for the momentary distraction. Questions? Phoenix replies seriously. I have a lot of them. Like, why didn't Grandpa want us to exist? And what's corporate espionage? And do we get to see your robot workshop now that we know you're our dad? And he flips a page. Does this mean we're rich? Despite everything, Griffin can't help but laugh. Those are all very good questions. How about we make a deal? You can ask me anything, all of you can, and I promise to always tell you the truth. Even when it's complicated. Even when it's about hard things like what your grandfather did. Even about why you have a scar on your eyebrow like Atlas does? Orion asks. Mom said it was probably genetic, but we wanted to know the story. Griffin touches the small scar reflexively. Motorcycle accident when I was 16. Which reminds me, no motorcycles until you're at least 30. But that's forever. Atlas protests. Welcome to parenthood, Sage says dryly, but there's a hint of warmth in her voice now. Better late than never. Their server returns to collect their plates, all traces of their color-changing meals gone. Can I interest anyone in our meteor shower Sunday? It comes with actual sparks. 3 pairs of eager eyes turn to their parents. Griffin looks at Sage, raising an eyebrow in question. She sighs, but she's fighting a smile. One to share, she concedes. You 3 still have homework to make up, remember? As the boys cheer, Griffin realizes something. In the space of a few hours, he's gone from being Boston's most eligible bachelor to being something far more important, a father. And somehow, watching his sons argue about who gets the first bite of a sparking sundae feels more significant than any business deal he's ever closed. As they exit Cosmic Burger, a flash goes off. Griffin instinctively steps in front of his sons, his body tensing. A young woman with a professional camera lowers it quickly. Mr. Blackwood, care to comment on why you missed this morning's board meeting? And who are these adorable mini MES with you? Griffin's hand finds Sage's elbow, guiding her and the boys toward the Tesla. No comment, he says firmly, but it's too late. More phones are coming out, more pictures being snapped. Mom, Atlas whispers, pressing closer to Sage. People are staring. Get in the car quickly, Griffin instructs, using his body to shield them from the growing crowd of onlookers. Once they're inside, he turns to the small gathering of people. Please respect my family's privacy. Any media inquiries can go through my office. Inside the Tesla, the boys are a mixture of scared and excited. Is this what it's always like for you? Orion asks, watching through the tinted windows as Griffin makes his way to the driver's side. Sometimes, Griffin admits as he slides behind the wheel. I'm sorry about that. I should have been more careful. Your office is going to be swamped, Sage says, her face pale. Those photos will be everywhere within the hour. As if on cue, Griffin's phone starts ringing. Kingston's name flashes on the screen, along with dozens of text notifications. He connects the call through the car's system. Sir, Kingston's voice fills the vehicle. We have a situation. Those photos are already hitting social media. Stock prices are fluctuating. The board is demanding an emergency meeting. And he hesitates. Ms. Ravenna Sterling is on her way to your office. Griffin's hands tighten on the steering wheel. Ravenna? Why? She's claiming she has information about your personal life that the board needs to hear immediately. Sage goes very still. Ravenna Sterling? Your father's goddaughter? The one he wanted you to marry instead of me? The boys pick up on the tension immediately. Who's Ravenna? Phoenix asks, his notebook already out. Someone who's about to learn the hard way not to threaten my family, Griffin says, his voice cold. He ends the call. Kingston, send security to escort Miss Sterling out. She has no authority here. Griffin, Sage says quietly, what if she has proof? About what your father did. Then we'll deal with it. He glances in the rearview mirror at his sons. I'm not losing any of you again. We'll figure this out together. I could help, Atlas offers suddenly. I'm really good at computers. Maybe I could. No hacking, Sage says firmly, but she's fighting a smile. I wasn't going to say hacking, Atlas protests, though his guilty expression suggests otherwise. Just research. Griffin catches Sage's eye, and for a moment, they share a look of pure parental pride mixed with exasperation. It's such a natural moment, so domestic that it makes his chest ache. First things first, Griffin says, making a decision. We need to get ahead of this story. No more hiding, no more threats. The world's about to know that I have 3 brilliant sons and I couldn't be prouder. But what about your company? Orion asks worriedly. Won't this hurt you? The company exists to create a better future, Griffin replies. And you 3 are my future. Everything else is just details. Phoenix is scribbling furiously in his notebook. This is better than the books Mom lets me read, he mumbles, making everyone laugh. Where are we going? Atlas asks, noticing they're not heading toward their home or Griffin's office. To meet someone who can help us, Griffin answers. My grandmother. Your great-grandmother. Pearl Blackwood. She's the only one who stood up to my father when he was alive, and she still owns 30% of Blackwood Innovations. More importantly, he adds with a slight smile, she makes the world's best chocolate chip cookies. Another grandmother? The triplets exclaim in unison. One who's been waiting a very long time to meet you, Griffin says softly. Even if she didn't know it yet. If you're enjoying this video and want more content like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. That way you won't miss out on any of the amazing stories we have coming up. Your support really helps the channel grow and keeps us bringing you more of what you love. Thank you. Pearl Blackwood's home is a stunning Victorian mansion in Beacon Hill, its brick facade covered in classic Boston ivy. As they walk up the steps, Griffin remembers countless Sunday dinners here, the only place he ever felt free from his father's crushing expectations. Before they can ring the bell, the door swings open. Pearl Blackwood stands there, elegant in a tailored pantsuit despite being in her 70s, her silver hair swept into a classic chignon. Her sharp blue eyes take in the scene before her, Griffin, Sage, and 3 boys who are unmistakably Blackwoods. Well, she says, her Boston Brahmin accent crisp but warm, it seems Sterling's manipulations ran even deeper than I suspected. She opens her arms. Come here, all of you. I've got a fresh batch of cookies cooling in the kitchen. The boys look to their parents for permission before following Pearl inside. The foyer's crystal chandelier catches the sunlight, sending rainbows dancing across the walls. Phoenix immediately pulls out his notebook to sketch them. Your social media team is earning their keep, Pearl says to Griffin, leading them toward the kitchen. They've already released a statement about you taking personal time to reconnect with family. The stock's stabilizing. Grandmother, Griffin starts but Pearl waves him off. Kingston called me the moment he saw those boys. Smart man, your assistant. Now, she turns to Sage, let me look at you, dear. 10 years is far too long. Her eyes soften. Sterling never did tell me what he did to drive you away, but I always knew he was behind it. Sage blinks back tears. I didn't know who to trust. He had everything so perfectly arranged. Of course he did. My son was nothing if not thorough in his cruelty. Pearl's voice is matter-of-fact. But he's gone now, and his secrets are about to follow him. Mrs. Blackwood? Atlas pipes up. Are you really our great-grandmother? Indeed I am. And you must be Atlas. You have that same look your father got when he was planning to take apart my antique clock to see how it worked. She winks at him. The library has several much less valuable clocks you're welcome to disassemble. Atlas's eyes light up, but before he can race off, Pearl continues. First though, we need to deal with Ravenna Sterling. She's on her way here. Here? Griffin tenses. How did she? I invited her, Pearl says calmly, pulling a tray of perfectly golden cookies from the warming drawer. Sometimes the best way to defuse a bomb is to control the explosion. She hands cookies to the boys. Why don't you three explore the library while we have a chat with Miss Sterling? There's a robotics kit in there that your father left behind years ago. Once the boys are safely out of earshot, Pearl's expression hardens. That girl thinks she has leverage because of some documents Sterling left her. What she doesn't know is that I've spent the last 3 years collecting evidence of every illegal thing my son ever did, including what he did to you, Sage. But the proof he had against me? Sage begins. Fabricated as you suspected. And I can prove it. Pearl pulls out a tablet. Sterling might have been thorough, but I was better. Every altered document, every forged email, every manipulated security footage, I found the originals. He never knew I was watching. Griffin stares at his grandmother. You knew? All this time? I knew he'd done something unforgivable, but not what? Not about the boys. Pearl's voice catches slightly. If I'd known about my great-grandchildren, well, let's just say Sterling would have found himself out of power much sooner. The doorbell rings, its deep chime echoing through the house. Pearl straightens her jacket. That'll be Ravenna. Sage dear, would you check on the boys? Griffin and I will handle this. I should stay, Sage protests. No, Pearl says firmly. You've faced enough of Sterling's poison. Let us clean up his mess for once. She squeezes Sage's hand. Besides, I suspect Atlas has already found those clocks, and that library has been peaceful for far too long. As Sage reluctantly heads toward the library, Pearl turns to Griffin. Ready to protect your family properly this time? Griffin nods, his jaw set. Through the library door, he can hear his son's excited voices as they discover some new treasure in their great-grandmother's collection. Everything he needs to fight for is right here in this house. Ready, he says. Ravenna Sterling sweeps into Pearl's sitting room like she owns it, her Louboutin heels clicking against the hardwood floors. At 33, she's a striking woman who's made her own fortune in venture capital, though her start came from Sterling Blackwood's generous mentorship. Griffin, she says, her red lips curving into a practiced smile. Quite the morning you've had. 3 secret sons? Sterling must be rolling in his grave. Good, Griffin replies coldly. Though I doubt anything could make him as uncomfortable as he deserves to be. Pearl gestures to an antique armchair. Sit, Ravenna. Let's discuss what you think you're going to accomplish here. Ravenna perches on the chair's edge, pulling a sleek tablet from her Hermes bag. Just doing what Sterling asked of me. He left very specific instructions about what to do if certain situations arose. Like me discovering I have children? Griffin's voice is dangerous. Like the truth about why your precious Sage really left. Ravenna swipes through her tablet. The board won't look kindly on a CEO whose wife-to-be was caught stealing company secrets. The evidence is quite damning. From the library, they hear a burst of laughter, Phoenix's distinctive giggle carrying through the house. Ravenna's expression flickers. Those boys, she says carefully, they complicate things. But I'm sure we can come to an arrangement. Sterling always wanted us to merge our families. It's not too late. Griffin laughs, the sound utterly without humor. You're actually proposing marriage? Now. Think about it, Ravenna leans forward. We could protect the company's reputation. Keep the boys' parentage quiet. Save everyone the scandal. I've always wanted children. Those are my sons. Griffin cuts her off, his voice like ice. Not bargaining chips. Not your ticket to the Blackwood name. And Sage. He stands towering over her. She never stole anything. My father fabricated everything because she wouldn't step aside for you. Prove it, Ravenna challenges, but there's a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. Actually, Pearl says smoothly, we can. She picks up her own tablet. Sterling was meticulous about his schemes, but he forgot one thing. I was on the board when he implemented our first digital security systems. Every file, every access point, every modification left traces. Traces I've spent years following. She projects a series of documents onto the wall. The original security footage of Sage in the R&D department, unaltered. The real access logs. The authentic emails. And here, she swipes to a new document, Sterling's own instructions to the security team to plant false evidence. Ravenna's face drains of color. That's not, he wouldn't. He would and did, Pearl continues relentlessly. Just like he manipulated you, didn't he? Fed you stories about your parents' death being more than an accident? Promised you'd be part of the family if you just played your role? Ravenna's hands begin to shake. You don't understand. He was the only one who cared about me after they died. He said. He said what you needed to hear, Griffin's voice softens slightly. Just like he always did. To all of us. A small sound from the doorway makes them turn. Atlas stands there, a dismantled clock in his hands, his gray eyes, Griffin's eyes, wide with understanding. Is that why you were mean to Mom? He asks Ravenna. Because someone was mean to you first? The simple question, delivered with a child's directness, seems to pierce Ravenna's armor. She looks at the boy, so clearly a Blackwood, so clearly Griffin's son, and something in her breaks. I never knew, she whispers. About the boys. About what he really did to Sage. He just said she'd chosen her career over the family, that she tried to steal. She looks up at Griffin. I thought I was protecting the company. Protecting his legacy. His legacy, Pearl says quietly, is right there in that doorway. And in the library with his brothers. Not in schemes and lies and manipulation. It's time to let the past stay in the past, Ravenna. Atlas steps forward, still holding his clock parts. I'm trying to make this better, he says, showing her the dismantled timepiece. Sometimes you have to take things apart to fix them. Out of the mouths of babes, Griffin thinks, watching as his son's innocent wisdom does what all their arguments couldn't, reaches the scared, manipulated child still living inside Ravenna Sterling. Sage finds them all in the sitting room, Ravenna dabbing at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief while Atlas earnestly explains his plans for upgrading the antique clock with modern components. Phoenix and Orion trail behind their mother, taking in the scene with curious eyes. Everything okay? Sage asks cautiously. Getting there, Griffin answers, watching as Ravenna quickly composes herself. I should go, Ravenna says, standing. She looks at Sage, really looks at her for the first time. I'm sorry. For everything. I thought, well, it doesn't matter what I thought. Sterling lied to all of us. Pearl clears her throat. Before you leave, dear, perhaps we should discuss how to handle the press? After all, you do own a significant portion of Blackwood media outlets. Ravenna's business instincts kick in. I could help shape the narrative. Position it as a family reunion story. Beloved CO discovers he has 3 gifted sons. Family comes together after years apart. The public loves redemption arcs. No manipulation, Griffin warns. Just the truth. The truth is better than anything we could fabricate, Ravenna admits, looking at the boys. 3 brilliant kids, successful parents who found their way back to each other. It's the kind of story people want to believe in. Phoenix, who's been writing in his ever-present notebook, speaks up. Could you put in the part about the physics discussion at Cosmic Burger? That was cool. A genuine smile crosses Ravenna's face. Absolutely. Human interest pieces love those details. And the robot workshop? Atlas adds hopefully. Speaking of which, Pearl interjects. Why don't you boys show your mother what you found in the library? I believe there's an entire box of your father's old engineering projects up there. Once the boys and Sage leave, Pearl turns to Ravenna. You understand what's at stake here? This isn't just about the company or the media. These boys deserve a chance to know their father without the weight of scandal. I understand, Ravenna says quietly. Maybe Maybe it's time I focused on building something new instead of clinging to Sterling's old plans. You could start, Griffin suggests, by joining us for Sunday dinner next week. If you're willing to be part of this family the right way, no schemes, no manipulation, there's room for you here. Ravenna looks startled, then thoughtful. I'd like that. From upstairs comes the sound of excited shouting. Dad. Griffin. Come look what we found. Griffin's heart leaps at being called Dad for the first time. He excuses himself and takes the stairs 2 at a time, following the voices to the library. He finds his sons clustered around an old robotics project. One he'd built at their age, trying desperately to win his father's approval. Can you show us how it works? Orion asks. Better, Griffin says, sitting down beside them. I can show you how to build your own. A better one. Sage watches from the doorway as Griffin begins explaining the basic principles of robotics to their eagerly listening sons. Pearl joins her, resting a gentle hand on her arm. You did an amazing job with them, Pearl says softly. Now let us help. All of us. Even Ravenna? Sage asks, only half joking. Everyone deserves a chance to break free from Sterling's influence, Pearl replies. Look how happy they are. That's the future he tried to prevent, but here it is anyway. Atlas is already taking apart the old robot, while Phoenix sketches detailed diagrams and Orion organizes the components. They work together seamlessly, each contributing their unique strengths to the project. Just like a family should, Sage thinks. Mom? Phoenix calls out. Come see what we're building. Sage joins them on the floor, not caring about her designer jeans getting dusty. As Griffin explains a particular mechanism, his hand brushes hers, reaching for a screwdriver. The touch sends the same spark through her that it did 12 years ago in their college engineering lab. Some things, she realizes, never really change. They just evolve, grow, become stronger. Like the love that created these brilliant boys. Like the family they're rebuilding, piece by piece, stronger than before. Later that evening, as the sun sets over Boston's skyline, the family remains in Pearl's library. Takeout containers from their favorite Italian restaurant litter the antique coffee table. Pearl had insisted on treating everyone to Sage and Griffin's old date night spot, Bella Luna. Remember when we used to split the tiramisu? Sage asks Griffin softly, watching as their sons devour their own shared dessert. Every Friday night, Griffin replies with a hint of nostalgia. Until I ordered chocolate cake instead, Sage finishes. The night I was going to tell you I thought I might be pregnant. She never got the chance. Sterling's threats came the next morning. Kingston appears in the doorway, tablet in hand. Sir, the press release is ready for your approval. Ms. Sterling's media team has coordinated with ours. Griffin takes the tablet, reading aloud. Blackwood Innovation CEO Griffin Blackwood announces joyful family reunion with former fiancée Sage Winters and their 9-year-old triplet sons. The family requests privacy during this time of reconnection while expressing gratitude for the public's understanding and support. There's more, Kingston continues, about Ms. Winters' distinguished teaching career, the boys' academic achievements, and a brief statement about past misunderstandings being resolved. Ms. Sterling included quotes from several board members welcoming the news. She works fast, Pearl comments approvingly. Will it be enough? Sage worries. The media can be brutal. Mom, Phoenix pipes up from his spot on the floor, we've got something to show you first. He nods to his brothers, who retrieve their backpacks. The boys pull out 3 identical folders, each decorated with careful diagrams and calculations. We've been working on this all afternoon, Atlas explains, spreading the papers out. It's our plan for the public announcement, Orion adds. We call it Operation Family 2.0. Griffin moves closer, examining their work. The folders contain detailed flowcharts, contingency plans, and even potential interview questions with suggested answers. There's a section titled Cool Science Facts about Identical Triplets, and another called Why Our Dad's Company Matters. You did all this today? Sage asks, amazed. Great-Grandma Pearl helped, Phoenix admits. And we used her computer to research similar cases. Did you know there are 27 CEOs in the Fortune 500 who discovered they had children they didn't know about? Though none had triplets, Atlas adds proudly. We're unique. Plus, Orion continues, we made a list of all the ways this could actually help the company. Like, Dad's whole thing is creating technology that brings people together and makes lives better, right? So this proves he really believes in that. Griffin stares at his sons in wonder. You're protecting me. Us. Well, yeah, Atlas says matter-of-factly. That's what families do. Even new ones. Sage wipes tears from her eyes as she examines their work. You've thought of everything. Even suggested family activities for public appearances? The Science Museum would be perfect, Phoenix says enthusiastically. We could show Dad our favorite exhibits and the press would get great photos of us learning together. Plus, Atlas grins, they have a new robotics display we've been dying to see. Pearl watches from her armchair, a satisfied smile on her face. I believe your son's just solved your PR crisis, Griffin. Nothing wins hearts like genuine family love, especially when backed by impressive scientific methodology. Kingston's already typing on his tablet. I'll have the team incorporate elements of their plan into our strategy. The personal touch will make everything more authentic. That's because it is authentic, Griffin says, pulling his sons into a hug. Everything about this family is real. No more hiding, no more secrets. Speaking of no more secrets, Pearl interjects, there's something else you should all see. She walks to a large portrait of Sterling Blackwood that hangs over the fireplace and swings it aside, revealing a wall safe. Dramatic, grandmother, Griffin comments dryly. Sterling wasn't the only one who knew how to create a moment, Pearl replies, opening the safe. She removes a thick envelope. This is your father's real will. The one he didn't want anyone to find. Everyone gathers around as Pearl opens the envelope, the paper crackling with age. Even the boys sense the gravity of the moment, setting aside their projects to listen. My son wrote this the week before he died, Pearl explains. His cancer had spread and I think he finally faced some hard truths. She begins to read. To my son Griffin, I leave not just my shares in Blackwood Innovations, but also my deepest regrets. I built this company believing I was creating a legacy, but I destroyed the very things that matter most. My actions regarding Sage Winters and the child she may have carried were unforgivable. Griffin's hand finds Sage's as Pearl continues. I've deposited funds in trust accounts, one for Sage and one for any child that may exist. Mother knows the details. I also leave my personal journals, documenting every wrong I committed in the name of protecting our family's reputation. Use them to make things right. He knew, Sage whispers. At the end, he knew about the pregnancy? He suspected, Pearl confirms. But by then you were gone without a trace. His private investigators never found you. What else does it say? Atlas asks, his natural curiosity winning out over the tense atmosphere. Pearl continues reading, to Ravenna Sterling, I leave an apology. I manipulated a grieving child for my own purposes, twisting your loyalty into a weapon. The truth about your parents' accident is in my journals. They were good people who died tragically, nothing more. I'm sorry I used their memory to control you. There's a separate letter for Ravenna, Pearl adds. I'll make sure she gets it. To my mother, Pearl's voice wavers slightly, I leave the task of fixing what I broke. You always saw through my schemes, always tried to guide me toward a better path. Help Griffin be the father I never was. Phoenix is writing furiously in his notebook. This is like in my mystery books, he whispers to Orion. When the bad guy has a change of heart at the end. He wasn't all bad, Griffin says quietly. Just lost. Somewhere along the way he forgot what really mattered. The journals? Sage asks. Where are they? Pearl retrieves a stack of leather-bound books from the safe. Everything's here. Every scheme, every manipulation, every regret. But also every hope he had for the company, every dream of innovation he couldn't quite achieve. She hands them to Griffin. Your father was a brilliant man who lost his way. Don't let his mistakes overshadow the good he wanted to do. Atlas reaches for one of the journals, but Sage gently stops him. Some things should wait until you're older, sweetheart. But we're part of this story too, Orion protests. Don't we deserve to know? Griffin kneels down to his son's level. You're right. You do deserve to know. But some of these truths are heavy, complicated. How about this? Mom and I will read through everything first, then share with you what you need to know. No more secrets, but also no more burdens than you need to carry right now. The boys exchange looks, having one of their silent conversations. Finally, Phoenix speaks for them all. Okay, but can we at least know if there are any cool invention ideas in there? Because Atlas has been working on something, and if Great-Grandpa had similar thoughts. Griffin laughs, the tension breaking. Tell you what, tomorrow we'll go through the technical drawings together. Your great-grandfather was a brilliant engineer, whatever his other faults. And after that, Sage adds, surprising everyone, maybe we could all have lunch at Cosmic Burger again? As a family? With Great-Grandma Pearl too? Alice asks hopefully. Wouldn't miss it, Pearl says with a smile. Someone needs to make sure you boys don't actually try to hack the gravity simulator this time. We weren't hacking, Atlas protests. We were optimizing. As the boys launch into a detailed explanation of their optimization plans, Griffin pulls Sage aside. Are you okay? With all of this? She looks at their sons, so alive with curiosity and intelligence, then at Pearl, who's actively encouraging their scientific enthusiasm, and finally at Griffin himself, the man she never stopped loving, now free from his father's shadow. I think, she says softly, we're exactly where we're supposed to be. 1 week later, the Crimson Bean Coffee House is packed with reporters and photographers. Griffin stands at a small podium, his family beside him. The boys are dressed in matching navy blazers, their choice, insisting they wanted to look professional like Dad, while Sage wears an elegant emerald dress that matches her eyes. Pearl and Ravenna sit in the front row, a united front of support. Thank you all for coming, Griffin begins. A week ago, I walked into this coffee shop as a man who thought he had everything figured out. I was wrong. What I found here wasn't just my past, I found my future. He looks at his sons, who beam back at him. These remarkable young men are Atlas, Orion, and Phoenix Winters Blackwood. My sons. Their mother, Sage Winters, is the woman I never stopped loving, even when circumstances tore us apart. Today we're not just announcing their existence to the world, we're announcing a new direction for Blackwood Innovations. Atlas steps forward right on cue, perfectly rehearsed from their family planning sessions. We're launching the Blackwood Young Innovators Program, he announces confidently. To help kids interested in science and technology, especially those who might not have the resources they need. Orion takes his turn. The program will provide scholarships, mentoring, and access to cutting-edge technology. Because everyone deserves a chance to build something amazing. Phoenix completes their presentation. And we're starting with a special focus on helping single parents and their children, so other families can have the support they need to achieve their dreams. The reporters' cameras flash rapidly as Griffin puts his arms around his sons. My father built this company believing that power and control were what mattered most. He was wrong. What matters is family, truth, and using our resources to help others. That's the real Blackwood legacy. Sage steps forward, taking Griffin's hand. We're also announcing the Sterling Blackwood Redemption Foundation, she adds. Because it's never too late to admit mistakes, to make amends, and to choose a better path. From her seat, Ravenna nods, tears in her eyes. She'll be heading the foundation, turning her media expertise toward highlighting stories of reconciliation and redemption. Mom, Atlas whispers loudly enough for the microphones to pick up, can we show them our science project now? The crowd laughs as the boys eagerly unveil their latest creation. A small robot designed to help other kids learn coding and engineering. It's built from parts they found in Pearl's library, upgraded with Griffin's help and programmed with Sage's guidance. A true family collaboration. This morning, Griffin concludes, these 3 brilliant young men had their first official day at Blackwood Innovations' new youth lab. They immediately pointed out 17 ways to improve our latest prototype. He grins. They also reminded me what really matters in life. Not the success you achieve, but the love you share and the difference you make in others' lives. As the formal presentation ends and the family mingles with reporters, Pearl watches from her seat, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. Her grandson has become the man she always knew he could be, and her great-grandsons are already showing signs of being even better. Later, as they all crowd into a booth at Cosmic Burger to celebrate, Phoenix pulls out his notebook one last time. I figured out the moral of our story, he announces. Oh? Griffin asks, sharing an amused look with Sage. What is it? Family isn't about being perfect, Phoenix reads seriously. It's about being together, fixing mistakes, and making things better than they were before. Like when Atlas breaks something but then makes it work even better than it did originally. Hey. Atlas protests, but he's grinning. Also, Orion adds thoughtfully, sometimes the best inventions come from unexpected accidents. Like us. The adults laugh and Griffin pulls his family closer. That's the best moral I've ever heard, he says softly. Sometimes life's biggest mistakes can lead to its greatest blessings, if you're brave enough to face the truth and wise enough to choose love over pride. Looking around the table at the family he never knew he needed, his brilliant sons, their amazing mother, his supportive grandmother, and even Ravenna finding her own path to redemption, Griffin knows that every step, every mistake, every revelation led exactly where they were meant to be. Hey everyone. Thank you so much for watching this incredible journey of family, forgiveness, and second chances. If you enjoyed this video and want to support more content like this, consider using the super thanks button below. Your support helps us create more meaningful stories that touch hearts and remind us what truly matters in life. Don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment telling us about a time when an unexpected meeting changed your life forever. See you in the next video.